Hi, welcome back to Life with Lyric. Today's topic is a little heavier. It has trigger warnings for emotional abuse, physical abuse, and some parts of emetophobia. I myself am emetophobic. I just don't have a problem talking about it. So uh, skip forward if that's not for you. I just feel like this topic is super important. So, today we're going to be talking about a documentary called Kidnapped for Christ. It was a film that came out in 2014, but is recently coming back to life because of a TikToker. If I remember her name, I will put it in the description box. But it's really coming back to light. A lot of people are watching it because it is just, it's a heartbreaking documentary. So, Kidnapped for Christ focuses on a school called Escuela Caribe, which is in the Dominican Republic, and the founder is Gordon Blossom. He himself had actually gone to all boys school for delinquents, as he said. He believes in something called cultural shock therapy, which essentially what that means is taking someone out of their comfort zone and out of their own culture and putting them into a completely new culture that may make them feel super uncomfortable. That's why when people travel anywhere, like say if you're a United States citizen and if you travel somewhere like anywhere else, you might experience cultural shock. People talk about it when they travel, and some things like they're not used to. We just have to adjust to the way that other people live because we are so used to how we live. And we think how we live is right and how other people may live is wrong, but that's not true. Um, Everybody lives in their own different ways. So, yeah. And he essentially used the Bible to replace needed therapy. He kids there were sent away anywhere from 18 to 24 months. So a long time. This program cost 72,000 a year, and at the time that was 10,000 more a year than Harvard, I believe is what the documentary said. I have no clue what Harvard's tuition is now, but I'm going to tell you that these living conditions were terrible. They were essentially in like metal cabin type things, and it did not look like any of that money was being put to use and things like where they actually lived for this amount of time. And even the food, they could only have like three different foods. And if I were to only have three different foods for that amount of time, I would just be so sick of it and grossed out and just done. But one girl had actually suffered from panic attacks, and so she had left school pretty frequently because school is what was triggering the panic attacks, and the school just called her essentially lazy, and they didn't really understand. And that's why she was sent there, as well as a suicide attempt. And later on in the documentary, you can see how they try to heal and cure the panic attack, so to speak, is through Bible scripture and having her do things like chin ups and push ups. She was even on self harm watch, which and when you're in the United States, it's something that's basically making sure that you don't hurt yourself. They give you tools in order to combat those urges. But for her, they made her do intense workouts and stuff, and this was pretty much the norm. They even had a chant that was "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world," and I think they chanted it before dinner, if I'm not wrong, and others were sent there because of their sexuality, which is really sad. They were forced to do, like I said, intense workouts like push ups, run miles until they literally coughed and puked and everything. And there were like no medical staff at this place. There were no nurses, no anything. So somebody could have been severely physically damaged, and it would they could have prevented them from getting help, if that makes sense. So they had house fathers and house mothers, which essentially these people were who made or braked your day. Broke? Anyways, they were who determines if you're going to have a good day or if you're going to have a bad day. They were the ones who determined as far as the level systems, because there's 7 level systems, and they really they would, like, there's a point system as well as a level system, and if you were to do things like, for instance, if you were to not tuck your shoelaces inside your boots and shoes, and they had to line them up so precise, and they had to really do their bed practically military style, as well as clean up their personal hygiene area, and if they weren't fit to that person's likings, their fathers and house mothers' likings, they could have the power to knock you back down to level 0. They could knock you down to multiple different levels. And interesting thing about if your shoelaces were not in the boots, they would be thrown in an area called a confiscation area, and you would not get them back, really, hardly ever. So if you are on level 0, which everybody starts at level 0, you are told when you can go to the bathroom, and you are monitored with that. That is just insane to me. I hate to use that word, but it is just absolutely wild to me that they would even do things like that. And you either get to level 7 or you age out. But the thing is, the house fathers and house mothers, and as well as the staff members, make it nearly impossible to get to that level 7. It is so hard to get to. I mean, you have to be the picture perfect child. You can't question authority or why they're doing the things that they do. You cannot do any of that. And to get to level 7, you basically have to be a robot if you were to get to level 7. And most of these people, of these youth that come back later, are robots. They are literal human robots. They only will cook and clean and really become people pleasers, as one might say, because they've been in this program anywhere from 18 to 24 months, and they are just wanting to please anyone because they fear if they don't that they might get lashed out against, because in this school, that if you were to question authority or if you were not to do your things, you could possibly get sent to an area called the quiet room. And essentially what the quiet room is there's a bucket, there's a roll of toilet paper for if you need to go to the bathroom, and there's a dirty mattress, you have a really light blanket on you, and a lot of the staff members would come in and gang up on the kid and push the kid around, push the youth around, and whoever was in the quiet room. And quiet room was basically forbidden to be talked about. You could not talk about what would happen in there, but it came to light what things really did happen in there, and the horror stories that have really came from the quiet room. You would have just an incredible amount of housework. Your day basically consisted from morning until nighttime. You were to clean, and cook, and not much else. If you weren't doing that, then you were exercising very vigorously, and that's how they thought that you would get better. That's how they thought that they could solve these people's issues. And it's important to note that sexuality is not an issue. That's something that nobody has control of. And it essentially, for a lot of people who were questioning their sexuality at that point, came to a conversion camp for them. And conversion camps are terrible. They should be outlawed, as well as with the mental health issues, like the girl having panic attacks. One girl had even suffered from something so traumatic, and they thought that this was the right way to straighten her out, because after the traumatic incident had happened, she had turned to things like drugs and alcohol and stuff, and she did not get the needed therapy that these youth desperately need. Um, Therapy can be a great tool if used right, but this was by no means therapy. So they were members who afterwards were so brainwashed that they would say, "Oh, it was a great program, it saved my life," and it just goes to prove how much brainwashing was done. They would say things like, "Oh yeah, they might have punched me, they might have kicked me, but it's okay. I turned out to be a better person." That is never okay. That is just never okay on any level. And it, a lot of these youth were going to need therapy later on from this program that was supposed to be the reason, supposed to be therapy, but it wasn't. It was, they would give you Bible scriptures in order to really cure the panic attacks. And religion, it, you can think your opinion on it. It can have some healing properties for people, but it is by no means a replacement for therapy. Things like cognitive behavioral therapy, there's so many different types of therapies that people can benefit from. And unfortunately, the program still exists today. It's just under a new name of Crosswinds. And I was really shocked to know that worldwide, lots of programs like these exist, but even within the United States, if you were to Google these programs, they pop up. And just reading some of the reviews of how one girl had gone to a different program than Crosswind slash Escuela Caribe. She had gone to a different program, a program in the United States, and she had an eating disorder, and the way that they treated her was just awful. They made her eating disorder worse. They would restrict food from her even more. They would just yell as a scare tactic. And knowing that so many of these programs exist in the United States and worldwide today, but I'm going to especially focus on the United States because that's where I happen to live, is the United States. What can you do to help? You can advocate for these programs to be shut down or to be reformed to a point where they cannot use things like yelling, enforcing physical abuse, emotional abuse, restricting diet even further, because that's not okay. So today I am actually pushing for Congress to establish laws against these programs. At least if they are going to be a program, make it so that it's beneficial. Make it so that it has the needed therapy incorporated for things like PTSD and anxiety and stuff. Don't just throw them to the wolves and say, "Oh, here's how you fix it through the Bible or through scare tactics." So you can also listen to the survivors of these people who have gone through these traumatic experiences and who to this day suffer from things like PTSD from these programs and from these schools. So that is what you can do. And I am so sorry that it's a harder topic today, but I feel like this is so important. This is so needed to talk about. I have a voice. I'm going to use it. And I will always advocate for human rights. And as someone going into psychology, I'm in my third year. I will be in my third year of psychology come in August. It just appalled me that this was what they were doing rather than truly getting them the help that they needed. So with that, I say thank you for listening. Again, contact Congress members to hopefully try to establish laws against this. Is something that has been going on since 2014 and beyond that. It's something that's been going on for so long, and it's time to end now.